All right, game three. So, Alec was my first and only adult opponent in this tournament. The benefits of playing in under 1400 section at a local club on a Saturday. A lot of children. But I was playing as black, and it was the first game where I got to Caro. I got to Caro, everybody! I was so excited. I was so excited. This is what I've been preparing for all my life. D5. Now, in the Caro Con, there are several ways that Alec could have continued. We could have gone for an exchange variation, or a Tartacow, or a two knights, or any sort of sideline here. But we go for the Caro Con advance. And you know me. C5 all the way, baby! And then he takes, which is book move and best move. And this is not a variation I'm super keen on, if I'm being honest, because this pawn, this little e5 pawn, the worst thing in the world. The absolute worst thing in the world. And the entire game is just spent trying to deal with that pawn on e5. And that's not a me problem. That's a Caro Con variation problem, right? So, well done from Alec. Playing great moves here. And I do run out of theory pretty quickly. I think this is where his theory ended, if I'm not mistaken, because I believe that c3 is done in order to make this push happen, because if you're going to castle kingside, this pawn structure is great, because then this pawn will never, ever, ever, ever get taken, and you have this pawn, right? What's book here? E6? Oh, let's see. What does computer think? Yes, e6 is the book move here, because this knight has no nice home. Has no nice home. So yes, the bishop is doing a job, but is not comfortably supported by the knight, which is what I would have liked to have happen here. Hello, E-Repair. How's things? Things are good. I'm reviewing a tournament game from this weekend. This is game 3, and I got to Caro Con. So Alex defends the pawn with the bishop, which I guess is a book move here, but it's not what I was expecting. All right, so at this point, I'm like, okay, my knight has to go somewhere. I need to develop. Only square is e7, which is not a square I like for my knight, but that's okay. Engine here recommends a6. Playing some great moves, I know, right? And then I move the knight to f5, with the idea being to attack the bishop. I don't think I am keen on taking it immediately, but I just like having the option, you know? Because if the bishop falls, it does open up some ideas for taking pawns. So I really like this move from Alec. This is best move, where the bishop is still takeable, but if I want to take, then Alec gets this really, really formidable pawn structure in the center that's completely locked, and I'm trading one of my knights for a bishop where in a locked position, maybe not a great trade. So what do? I develop because I don't know what else to do. So Alec kicks my bishop. I take, because in the advance you often take. Engine thinks that moving back to moving to h5 would have been stronger here. But it's not the end of the world. It's okay. And then at this point I castle. Alec finishes developing. I move a rook to c8, thinking that, okay, if I can move my knight somewhere, then I have enough pressure here. It's not like the strongest of attempts in the world, but it's something, right? Just kind of getting my rook on a file that I anticipate may potentially open up. He played really, really well. He played really, really well. And you'll see that eval is slightly in his favor, not because either of us have made any inaccuracies at this point, I don't think. But just, you know, playing as white against the Caro-Kann with this variation is slightly stronger. Where were we? Okay, we had just castled, and he moved his bishop. I moved my rook, okay, and he castles. At this point, I made an inaccuracy and I broke the tension. But Amuser, that was my idea. I was like, get that bishop off the board. It seems really powerful because it is holding the pawns together in the center. So if I take it, then there's chances, right? To finally, maybe get rid of this pawn. Like the only thought with all of the moves so far in this game have been, how do I deal with the pawns in the center? So, of course, he takes back. And then I start trying to chip away at that pawn structure in the center with b6. He takes, I take with the queen. So now my queen is active. She has laser eyes on some targets. This one's not available yet in the center, but there are options, right? So he protects his pawn, and I start chipping away on the other side of the pawn chain. Okay, queenside pawn chain attack doesn't work. Let's move kingside. And I figured this was pretty safe because even though it is moving a pawn in front of my king, it's doing a really, really important attacking job, right? So I take. He takes with the knight. And there are chances here. There are chances. The e5 pawn is gone. My headache is gone. And then in this position, how do you take the pawn back in the center? Important question. Important question. Because it is available. Black has 2 attackers. 2, 1 defender. Well, we're going to find out. Yeah, you take with the knight. That is best move. That is only move. This is my Magnus Carlsen table slam moment, if there was one in this tournament. Queen takes d4 does not work. It does not work because of this beautiful idea. This beautiful idea, because this bishop can now get taken with check. So this whole exchange happened really quickly, and I thought I had calculated it correctly, and it wasn't until here that I looked at material on the board and was like, I'm an entire piece down. How did that happen? I felt like I had been slapped in the face. It was a phenomenal tactic from Alec. He did a great job responding to my blunder, and the game was lost at this point. But me thinking back to my game with Ian, I was like, okay, I blundered in the game with Ian and then made a spectacular comeback. So there are chances I will continue playing. I don't think it's rude of me to continue playing here. So let's play some more chess. I move the rook here to defend e6 because I am down material. I need to defend everything I can. And so Alec is adding pressure. I move my king because if I hadn't moved my king, then this pawn is available because this would have been pinned, right? Best move here would have actually been to move king to d6 to centralize the king, protecting this pawn, removing the pin potential, but I thought it was too early to centralize my king, so that's why I didn't make that move in the game. But, Alec was just like annihilating me over the chessboard at this point. Because even though I had moved my king out of the pin, he can still take the pawn on d5 Because if I take, he gets my rook. And I was very, very shaken. Yeah, what a move. It was beautiful. Just not me making the beautiful move. And it was just respect for such phenomenal moves. Like, obviously, I would rather not be losing so terribly. But if I have to lose, at least it's my opponent taking advantage of my mistakes. So I defend the pawn. It needs defending at this point. I can't lose any more material. So I just make this little rook cocoon. This little rook cocoon to protect my material. I'm lost. It's completely lost. I try to move my king out of the way, but I can't because Alec has the possibility of adding so much defense to the or attack to the e6 pawn that I have to keep just keeping my king tied to that pawn because whatever reason in my mind, I thought it was really important to keep that pawn. I don't know why that was the hill I was willing to die on, but it was. So I won't go through all the moves in this game because, well, it's not fun to see myself get like just massacred here. But this part of the game is kind of funny. Where my only moves here in order to keep protecting the e6 pawn, which remember that's what I was just like, my only idea at this point was protecting e6. So I just move my bishop or my rook back and forth for like 8 moves in a row. Because it needs to stay there. Yeah. Oh, moving to g5 to protect the pawn. But this is a really cool move where because I have to keep my rook on the 6, I can't defend this pawn after another turn. I guess I could have tried something like this. No, that wouldn't even work because then Alec grabs a7 with check. So the only mobile piece of mine is that rook. Everything else is defending this poor little pawn. But after a random move by him, I have to move my rook, then that pawn falls. I move my rook because, once again, I'm like, what else do I have here? Beautiful move here. He forces the exchange of the rook. I have to take, he takes, and I'm completely dead lost because now I can't move this pawn. It's pinned. Very common theme from this tournament is these pinned pawns. So I'm like, well, okay. Okay. And I probably should have resigned around here. It doesn't last too much longer. But the fact that I still have a pawn on the board tells me that like maybe there are chances, but not really. Great conversion from Alec. I resign at this point. It's mate in 2. There's nothing I can do. And unfortunately, this game really didn't go my way. And it was all down to this really dumb blip in my, like, chess brain where I miscalculated the exchange. Didn't give him the opportunity to earn style points by under-promoting to a rook. Yeah, if I broke chess etiquette there, let me know. I sincerely apologize. We got this song. Nah. But up to a point, I figured it was fair game. But yeah, so that game was really frustrating. The eval, Alec played with 91% accuracy. I played with 84% accuracy. I made no mistakes. I just made the one extraordinarily dumb blunder. and that cost me the game. So I was kind of shaken at this point. This was round 3, and after round 3, I only had 1 point in the tournament. Have I played out knight takes e-repair? Not fully, but it's equal. It's equal. Beforehand, eval's completely equal. At this point, oh no, never mind. That's not even the idea, because then there is a fork here. Yeah. I don't know if there's a name for it in chess, but I find that sometimes, even if I'm concentrating really hard and really accurately for 99.8% of a game, sometimes there's these one move blips where your brain just shuts off and your hand makes a move. And after the fact, you're like, why did I do that? Why did I do that? So what is the best move here? What is the best move here? Oh, you take the knight. And then, of course, the e5 pawn once again becomes a problem. But with the dark squared bishop on the board, maybe there's an idea here that defending c1. And then huge ideas with f2 here, with the open file between the rook and the queen. So if I had approached that sequence correctly, it would have been a tense game, a tight game.